So you've landed a job interview for a web development role. Here are a few tips of what not to do at the interview. Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well web chat. Today we're going to talk about interviews and what you shouldn't do in an interview. We're going to talk about preparing for the interview as well. So this goes for front-end developers and back-end developers, full-stack developers, DBAs, any kind of role in web development. The first thing not to do is quite an obvious one. It might seem quite obvious, and that is lie. So if someone says, do you know how to do X, or have you used the tool Y, or whatever like that, are you aware of these technologies? Don't just sort of dismiss that and go, yeah, sure, I know how to do that, I've done that. Because you will be quizzed, right? There will be follow-up questions that will find out how much of that you will know. Now, you're in the interview and you want to make yourself look like you are the most intelligent person in that room. That's probably what's going on in your head. So if you were to say, no, you don't know something, then you might think that that is a negative point to your name, right? That's a cross in the checklist. But saying that you don't know something is actually quite a good thing, because it shows the person, the employer, the people who are doing the interview, that you know your own limitations. So you could follow that up by saying, no, I don't know how to do this, I haven't heard about that, but I will look upon that later on. You know, that's something that I would like to investigate. And if you're doing that in your company, then I would love to develop skills in that area. And that is turning around a negative into a positive, because it's showing the interviewer that that is something that you are keen to develop and you're hungry to develop your skills in that area. Don't just say, oh yes, I know how to do that. And then when it comes to delving even further into that, it turns out that you weren't actually a part of that, but the company was part of that, or that technology you didn't actually know too much about. Maybe you've only just read a couple of articles on it. You're not the expert as you come across. So know your limitations. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to look the interviewer and all the people, because it's probably going to be more than one, right, who's sitting there. Look at all of them in the eye. And I don't mean in an aggressive way, I just mean when you're speaking to someone, always look at them when you're speaking to them. Don't just sort of shuffle around and look at your toes and all of that stuff, because people will pick up on that. And also, if you've got 3 people or 1 or more people in the interview, make sure you're talking at each one, right? So when you're talking about something, when you're talking about your experience, you're talking not just to one person in that room, you're talking to all of them, right? So you have to engage all of them. Try and get each one to ask you a question, and not only answer that question to that one person, but also answer the question to the rest of the group as well. You are presenting to the rest of the group, and that follows on to the third thing on presentations. So don't just rush the presentation. Don't just go through it really quickly. They might put a time limit on it. If they haven't put a time limit on it, ask how long you need to talk for, right? Ask what kind of things that you'll be presenting on. Is it going to be on a projector, and so forth? So don't rush the presentation. And also don't say everything at once. Keep some things back. So for example, they're going to be asking questions after the presentation, about the presentation, right? So they might be asking questions that relate to some certain technologies, design patterns that you might have presented. So you want to ensure that you have some knowledge left that you can answer those questions with, right? So for example, you might be presenting a design pattern, and you might be saying all the benefits of this design pattern, and then they might ask you some of the negatives of that design pattern. So make sure you've got that as well, because it shows that you have a well-rounded view of the presentation. And the next piece of advice, the next thing that you shouldn't do when you do an interview is you shouldn't be nervous. And that sounds stupid, right? Because everyone is nervous, but you shouldn't. Everybody has an interview, right, for a development job. So you're probably having an interview at the same time as thousands of people around the world are having an interview. It's not just you. So don't think it's just you. It isn't. And just, take a deep breath and be relaxed and calm. Look the person in the eye and just speak calmly. If you don't understand a question, then talk about that, ask them any more information about that. Ask them for an example. So if you don't understand, maybe it's a terminology problem. Maybe you do know what they're talking about, but it's a terminology issue. So you can ask them a question off of the back of their question, so you can understand the concepts slightly more. And the next tip is, if you are presenting something, if you are doing a test or you're handing in a test, then make sure you have that on multiple devices, right? So you've got that in your email, you've got that on a flash drive, just in case anything doesn't work. And that follows on to the next tip, and that is always, I mean, you're a programmer, you're a web developer, you write code. People want to speak to you about how good you are as a person, if you are socially level, right? But also they want to see your code. So make sure that your code is available, right? So make sure it's on GitHub, make sure that GitHub's up, and again, make sure that the code is actually on a flash drive or a CD or in the email, somewhere that can be accessed. Because the thing is, after the interview or at the end of the interview, you're probably going to be asked, can I see some code, right? Can I actually see what you've done in the last few weeks, few months, last year? All the lovely applications that you've said that you've worked on, is there a way that we can actually have a look at what you've done, what you've contributed to that? And also, if you've done any work in the open source world, so if you've actually contributed to open source projects, and something that I always say about the open source community is committing code or doing pull requests isn't the only way that you can contribute to that project. You can also raise issues, you can also write documentation. I've written some documentation before in the Sonata bundle for Symfony, just because I couldn't understand the installation process for that version. So when someone asks you, have you contributed, then that is a valid response. Yes, I have contributed, I've updated the README files. You haven't done any code, but it's still a contribution. And that actually shows the interviewer that you are caring and passionate about the application, the open source projects that you are using. So I'm going to leave it there, but if you are having an interview in the next few days or weeks or months, then good luck to you, because it's not an easy thing to do. Everybody gets nervous, so just relax and go with the flow. Thanks everyone for watching. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe, because I do have some web development tutorials that I do every Tuesday. So I've got PHP, some Docker, some HTML, some MySQL and so forth, as well as these web chats that I do every Friday. So thanks again for watching. Do share it around if you think others will find this useful. Happy coding everyone. I'll see you again next time. Cheers.